Hi there. So today we're going to talk about fractions, and especially we're going to talk about graphing fractions. But first, what I want to do is let's go back to high school and refresh our memory on what fractions really are and how we can add and subtract fractions and how we can visualize fractions on the number line. So if we think of a whole pizza, here's a pizza. And let's see, here's another pizza, and here's another pizza. I'm drawing them in red because pepperoni is my favorite, so I'm drawing it in pepperoni red. So here's three pizzas. And if we're going to look at things in halves, let's look at things in halves first. So 1/2. Okay, so what does that mean, 1/2? If I have 1/2 of a pizza, let's look at this first piece of pizza, or this first pizza right here. I'm going to divide this into half. So we have half of a pizza right here. So let's divide all of these pizzas into halves. So the reason why we know we can divide these pizzas into halves, and halves mean two pieces in one. If you notice, there's one piece of pizza and two pieces of pizza because we divided this pizza into halves. So there's two total pieces. Now, if we're talking about halves, how do we know to divide this pizza into two total pieces? Because this 2 matches the bottom number in our fraction. So whatever the bottom number of our fraction is, that's how many pieces we divide the pizza into. Let's do this again. Here's another pizza, and this time we want 1/3 of the pizza. So how are we going to divide that into thirds? Well, thirds, if you look at the bottom number on the fraction, that number is 3. So that means we're going to divide this pizza into 3 pieces. So there we have 3 kind of even. If I was doing this with a ruler, it would be equal. So 3 equal pieces of pizza. So here would be 1/3. 1/3 of a pizza. Now here are some more pizzas, and we've divided the pizzas into halves, and we know that they're halves because a half has the number 2 at the bottom, so we divide each pizza into 2 sections. 1 section, 2 sections. 1 section, 2. 1, 2. So that's how we know to divide the pizza into 2 parts, 2 equal parts, because the number at the bottom of the fraction is 2. Now what happens if we have something like 3 halves? Well, the bottom number is still 2, so we're still dealing with pizzas divided into 2 equal halves. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. But now we look at this top number. The top number is 3. So 3 is how many pieces of pizza we're going to take. So let's color in 3 pieces of pizza. And each pizza is divided into 2 equal parts. So we're going to color in 3 pieces of pizza. So 1, 2, 3. So that would be 3 halves of pizza. Now what's another way to call 3 halves of pizza? Now do you notice that in these 3, when we're coloring in these 3 halves of pizza, this entire first pizza gets colored in. So that's one whole pizza. And there's still some more pizza that was colored in the purple, and that's this one. And this is 1/2 of a pizza. So if we have one whole pizza and plus 1/2 of a pizza, that's going to equal to 1 1/2 pizzas. Now here are those same pizzas. We have pizzas divided into equal halves, and 3 of those halves are colored in. So that's 3 halves, which is the same thing as 1 1/2 pizzas. So up here, the 3 would be how many pieces, and the half, the 2, would be how to divide them, how to divide each pizza. How did we divide the pizza? We cut them in half, and that's the number 2. So let's look at this on the number line, and let's plot this on the number line. So here's 0 right here. Here's 1, 2, 3. So if you think about the number line in terms of pizzas, here's one whole pizza right here. And we're going to divide that from the 0 to the 1. We're going to divide that entire section into a half. So here's a half. And then in between the 1 and the 2, we're going to divide that section into a half. So this is the halfway mark between the 1 and the 2. And I'll just do that between the 2 and the 3 so it stays the same. Now, so on the number line, if you have 3 halves, and you want to plot this on the number line, we've divided each number into halves. That's where the 2 fits in. And now we want 3 of those halves. So here's the first half, that's 1. Here's the next half, that's 2 halves, and then 3 halves. So that purple that I just colored in on the number line is 3 sections, and each section is a half, so that's 3 halves. So if you look at this, we've passed by the number 1, and we've gone all the way up to the halfway point after the 1, so that equals 1 1/2. And that's the same thing as 3 halves. Exact same thing. It's just 2 different ways to put it, 2 different ways to write it, or 2 different ways to say it. But it's still the same thing. 1 1/2 is the same thing as 3 halves. Now let's look at this and talk about thirds. A third. So the number on the bottom of the fraction is how many equal pieces we're going to divide each pizza into. So this number on the bottom of the fraction, a third, the number is 3. So we're going to divide each pizza into 3 equal parts, 3 equal pieces. So 1, 2, 3 equal pieces in this pizza, 1, 2, 3 equal pieces of this pizza, and 1, 2, 3 equal pieces of this pizza. And the fact that I'm using 3 pizzas is just a coincidence. It doesn't matter how many pizzas. I could draw 100 pizzas on here and divide each of them into 3 equal parts. It doesn't matter. The point is that we want to get the 1, 2, 3 equal parts divided into each pizza when you cut the pizza. Why? Because that is the number on the bottom of the fraction. So whatever the number is on the bottom of the fraction, that's how many equal parts you're going to cut each pizza into. So what if we just have 1/3 of a pizza? That would be this number up here. So we would just color in 1/3 of a pizza. We would color in one piece of the pizza that's divided into 3 pieces. So this is 1/3. Now what if we had, let's say, 5/3? 5/3 of a pizza. Well, don't get tripped up by the fact that there's a 5 up there. This bottom number is still just the number 3. So we still just want to divide each pizza into 3 even pieces, just like we already did here. And then this number 5, that's how many pieces, not pizzas, but that's how many pieces we're going to color in. 5 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pieces of pizza, and each pizza is divided into 3 pieces. So if you look at this, how many pieces of pizza did I color in green? I colored in 5 pieces, right? But if you're dividing these pizzas into 3 parts each, then 5 pieces is going to take up more than just one pizza. We're going to have one whole pizza is colored in, and then we're going to have 1, 2 pieces of pizza that's divided by 3 parts. So we're going to keep that 3 number. We're going to keep that 3 number because each pizza is divided into 3 parts. You always keep that, the number of pieces each pizza is divided into, on the bottom of the fraction. But we have one whole pizza that we colored in also. And then this second pizza, pizza number 2, we have 2 pieces colored in. We don't have the whole pizza colored in. We just have 2 out of the 3 pieces colored in. So we're going to put 2 out of the 3 pieces colored in. So that's 1 pizza and 2 pieces out of 3 pieces of that second pizza. So that's 1 2/3, which is the exact same thing as 5/3. Exact same thing, just 2 different ways to write it. Now let's plot this on the number line. 5/3 on the number line. Well, just like we divided the pizza into 3 pieces each, we're going to divide each number into 3 pieces. So between the 0 and the 1, here's the 0 and the 1, we're going to divide this section into 3 even pieces. So here's piece 1, here's piece 2, here's piece 3. And we're going to divide the section between 1 and 2 into 3 even pieces. So here's piece 1, here's piece 2, here's piece 3. And we're going to divide the numbers between 2 and 3. We're going to divide that section into 3 even pieces. So here's piece 1, here's piece 2, and here's piece 3. Now 5, if we want 5/3, then we're just going to take those little thirds that we've divided the numbers into, and we're going to color in 5 of them. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 pieces, and each whole piece is divided into three pieces. So when we colored this in, we colored in the entire 0 to 1 section, and we colored in 2 of the 3 parts between the numbers 1 and 2. So we colored that entire 1 in, we passed up that entire 1, and then we colored in 2 parts out of the 3 parts that we had divided that section into. So that's 1 and 2/3, which is the same thing as 5/3. Now when we graph this, here's your graph paper, and I made the graph lines gray so you'd know that that's part of the graph paper. So each of these lines equals one box. So when we graph this, here's our ordered pair, and remember X is always first and then Y. So X is 3/2, 3/2. So when we graph this, this is the X line, the X axis. So we're going to start in the middle where the 0 is, in the center of the graph. And this 3/2 is positive. There's no negative sign. So we know we're going to go to the right on the X line, just like when we just graphed it on the number line. It's the exact same thing. Now we want to graph 3/2. The bottom of this 3/2, the number is 2, right? So we're going to take that 2 and we're going to divide each of these blocks up into 2 pieces. So 1, 2. And we divided that block up into 2. And we're dividing that block up into 2. And that block, and so on. And then 3, the number on the top, is going to be how many of those pieces we just made that you're going to count, that you're going to color in. So here's 1 piece, here's 2 pieces, and here's 3 pieces. So that's 3/2 is right there. And if you notice, that's the same thing as 1.5 blocks. So I'm going to draw a little 0 right there, so we know that that's where the X is. And then the Y is 2. Let me get a different color here. The Y is just 2, positive 2, so we're going to go up. So we start at that 0 we just made on the x-axis where the 3/2 mark is, and we're going to start on that line, and we're going to go up 2. So up 1, up 2. And that's where we're going to put our dot. So I'm going to make this in red so we know that this is the actual dot that we actually put on the graph. All of the rest of this stuff I just did in purple and green, you just kind of do that in your head. You don't put that on the graph. It's just this red dot, that's what you end up putting on the graph. Now we're going to graph our next set of ordered pairs, -1 and 5/3, or 5/3. So first, we always do the x first, and the x is -1. So what does negative mean? Negative means you're going to go backwards on the number line, or on the x-axis, on the x line. You're going to go backwards from the 0, -1. And it's just a whole number, just the number 1. So we're going to go backwards 1 square on the graph from the center 0. So let's look over here. The center, we go back to the center 0, always start at the center 0. And for our x, we're going to go back 1 box. Back because it's negative, 1 box because it's the number 1. So there is -1. And I'm going to draw a little 0 here just so we can keep in our mind that this is where our x is. It's -1 right there. Now our y is 5/3. And 5/3 is positive, so we're going to go up. There's no negative sign here. Just a fraction doesn't have anything to do with being negative or positive. It's just a fraction. So positive 5/3. So we're going to go up on the y line. But we start at where we left off at the x, where I drew that open circle. And how are we going to graph this 5/3? Well, first you look at the bottom number of the fraction, and that number is 3. So that's how many pieces we're going to divide up each box into. So I'm going to take my orange, and I'm going to start where the x is, where we ended off with the x. And I'm going to divide this box into 3 sections. So there you go. That's 3 equal parts to that box going up. And then I'm going to take the next box and I'm going to divide that into 3 equal parts. See, there's 3 equal parts in that box or on that line. Now we're going to go up 5 parts. And we're going to color that in, and we're starting from where we left off with the x. So 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts, 5 parts. So 5 parts, that's where we ended up. So I'm going to go back to my red, and that's where I'm going to draw this dot on the graph. So these 2 red dots are really the only things that you put on the graph. All this other stuff in the orange and the pink and the purple and the green, that's just what you do in your head when you're graphing. The only thing that you actually draw on the graph are these 2 red dots. And now that we have 2 points on a graph, we can draw a line through them. And that's not that even of a line. If I was using a ruler, it would be better. But there's our line through our 2 points on the graph. So see, graphing fractions is not different from graphing any other number. You just have to remember back in middle school and high school days, whatever kind of fraction you have, let's say 7/4. 7/4 sounds like a confusing fraction, right? But it's really not. Whatever the fraction is, you take that bottom number, and that's how many pieces you divide each. And then whatever the top number is, that's how many pieces you color in. And that's it.